Well, hello everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we have to talk about the negative equity situation because although I just made a video talking about this topic, I have some new information that is extremely troubling for me. In the previous video I mentioned that I wasn't too concerned because when I worked in the car business, I dealt with quite a bit of negative equity and we were pretty much always able to get people, every single person, but a lot of people done on their car deals, and it wasn't that big of an issue. However, with this new information, I've changed my mind. But before getting this video, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. So first off, I want to start off with some numbers because I think these numbers are really going to put into perspective just how bad this situation is. So when I worked in sales and dealt with negative equity, there were some cases that were pretty bad, but on average, it wasn't horrible. So most of the customers that I would deal with would have, maybe a few $1,000s in negative equity. And in some cases, maybe they would be like $10,000 upside down on a car. And, I did have some outliers that were way more than that. Like I remember I had a customer come in that owed like 20-something thousand dollars more on their car than what it was worth. And well, we weren't able to put the car deal together because the loan to value on the vehicles that they could afford, it just didn't make sense. If you guys don't know, the only way to uncover negative equity, and that's what we call it in the car business, is by basically selling someone a car that is expensive enough that the loan to value, despite the negative equity, is still in line to where a lending institution will loan out on the vehicle. So back then, lending institutions would go up to like 140, sometimes like 150+% loan to value in a vehicle. So that means that they would loan out like 140, 150% of a vehicle's value on it. And so like, let's say that someone's $10,000 upside down, for example, and they're looking at a $50,000 vehicle. Well, you can see that $10,000 is 20% of $50,000. And so if they take out a loan of $60,000 in that vehicle, 120% loan to value, that was typically in line with what most lending institutions would do. And so as long as the customer was okay with the payment that they would have and their income supported it, like it was pretty easy to put car deals together. And so that, again, is what I typically saw when I was in the car businesses. Again, most people were upside down, but it wasn't by like a massive amount. It was like a few $1,000s on average. And then you'd have your outliers that would be upside down by, maybe $10,000+. And sometimes we were able to get those deals done. But a lot of times we weren't because we just didn't have expensive enough product to be able to uncover that type of deficiency. Like if someone's, let's say, $30,000 upside down on a vehicle, then, the best chance you have of getting that person bought on a car is if you sell them a car that's like $100,000 plus. Right? Because I mean, like if you're like $100,000 car, $30,000 on top of that, then your loan to value 130%. So yeah, interesting situation. But again, that's what I dealt with. Now, like I alluded to earlier in the video, the circumstances that some people are in, the situations that dealers are encountering with customers is far worse today. Like it just shocked me when people started to tell me the numbers. And when you look at what's happened to the used car market, it actually makes a bit of sense. So again, used values increased by like 50% over the course of the pandemic, but they've now come down by over 20%. And so that obviously is going to put quite a few people in a position where they're pretty upside down, because if you bought at the peak, right, you bought when it was 50% higher, now it's down by like over 20%, then yeah, you could be pretty upside down. But some people paid way more than 50% on some vehicles. And so the amount of negative equity that they have is absolutely ridiculous. And the reason that they paid more is not because of markup on the vehicle. It's actually because of other products sold with the vehicles. So I haven't made an in-depth video on this yet. I'm still not sure if I'm going to. It just depends on what I have happening schedule-wise. But what you need to know is at the peak of pandemic price mania, people were not only paying extreme premiums for vehicles, they were paying extreme premiums for accessories on vehicles and for warranties on vehicles. It wasn't uncommon that a dealership would make $10,000 in profit on a vehicle and then $10,000 in profit on the warranties and other service contracts sold with that vehicle, and then maybe another $5,000+ on accessories associated with that vehicle. I mean, I remember hearing time and time again where dealers would have these car deals that they put together where they'd have $25,000+ in profit. And obviously, What that means is that that consumer is, going to have $25,000 plus in negative equity on top of the normal depreciation they'll experience with that vehicle if the car market slips. And obviously we know at this point the car market has slipped quite a bit. And so there is a fairly large portion of the population that so massively overpaid for vehicles because of the run-up in prices and because of the run-up in prices on products associated with the vehicles that they are absolutely decimated. Like, that is an understatement. So let me give you some real world examples of people that are absolutely decimated. So first example is a customer that purchased a pickup truck at the peak of the pandemic. Now, this pickup truck in a normal car market is maybe a $30,000 to $35,000 pickup truck. But at the peak of the pandemic, this pickup truck happened to be quite a bit more expensive than that. And it also happened to come with some accessories. It was lifted, it had some tires and wheels, and the customer also purchased a warranty with this pickup truck as well. And so after everything was said and done, the loan that this customer took out on this pickup truck was close to $70,000. Now, obviously, values have come down, and so the wholesale value on that pickup truck is somewhere in the high $20,000 range. And so that's what that customer would get as a trade-in value on their pickup truck. And so this customer obviously went in to trade in their pickup truck, and they obviously found out that they had over $30,000 in negative equity with a truck that they just purchased barely over a year ago. Now, they were able to get a deal put together with this particular customer. However, with everything said and done on this particular car deal, they now have a loan on a new pickup truck for over $80,000, and that new pickup truck is worth somewhere in the $40,000 range. So now they're about $40,000 upside down. And I mean, that is so much deficiency that, again, as prices come down, like, unless that customer is willing to buy an extremely expensive vehicle, like with what lending institutions are moving towards in terms of, loan to value and everything, like, they're not going to be able to buy anything. Like, they're going to have to ride that loan out until it is like the vehicle is fully paid off. Now, another example is a customer that purchased a Tesla Model S Plaid. Now, this situation is pretty interesting because this customer didn't really purchase any accessories with this vehicle, and they didn't really purchase a warranty with this either. However, they purchased this Tesla Model S Plaid at the hype of the Plaid market. And so they paid close to $200,000 for this car. And so they have a loan on this car for close to $200,000. Well, with Tesla's price cuts and with the fact that people just don't really want Teslas anymore, especially the Plaid, like, it's pretty much lost all of its excitement. Yes, it's an extremely fast car, but like, it's a one-trick pony, right? And people have kind of discovered that. Well, now they own a car that is probably like somewhere in the $100,000 range in terms of the wholesale value. It's kind of hard to tell because, again, Teslas need a few more weeks to really see where the values will fall, or maybe even a few months at this point. But regardless, this person has at least $80,000 plus in negative equity with their vehicle. And so, like, with $80,000 in negative equity, I mean, you're talking about having to buy a vehicle that is, unless you have a ton of money down, obviously, you're about having to buy a vehicle that is like several $100,000 to quote unquote uncover that deficiency. So now let's talk about what this is going to do to the car market now that we've gone over some real world examples. And when it comes to the used car market, this is definitely going to put some downward pressure on the used car market, but it looks like the used car market is just going to continue to do what it has been doing, which is just steady, slow decline over time. However, this is going to absolutely decimate the new car market. Like, this is going to pretty much, not overnight, but over the next few months, get rid of a lot of the dealer markets markups that we are currently seeing. Because a dealership can't mark up a vehicle they're selling to a customer if that customer has so much deficiency that the loan to value would be way too high for a lending institution to loan out on that car, right? Again, the dealerships have to make sure the whole car deal is within a certain range to where they can get a customer bought by a lending institution. And so dealerships are going to have to discount their inventory just to get customers bought. Again, that truck example that I gave you, brand new truck, that is a great example. Like, the dealership, to put that whole deal together, had to discount their truck a massive amount just to make it so the loan to value was within line, so then this customer could leave with a brand new truck. So you're going to see quite a bit more of this happen. And again, this is something that I experienced on a much smaller scale when I worked in the car business, where, with certain customers, we would have to basically, sometimes lose money on the front end of the car deal, like the vehicle we were selling at a loss, just so that the loan to value was within line to where a lending institution would actually loan out on the vehicle. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the dealership is going to lose money on the car deal, because the dealership will then try to make money in other ways, especially when it comes to, warranties and other, finance products associated with the car deal. And if you're wondering why a lending institution would allow this to happen, like why would they not just let the dealership mark up the car more? Why would they have to have a warranty on it? Well, lending institutions have pretty interesting rules when it comes to warranties and other service contracts. They will actually loan out more on a car if it happens to have those associated with it. So like, let's say a dealership just puts an addendum on a car, right? Just straight up markup. Then a lending institution says that, oh, well, it will only loan out this amount when it comes to loan to value. But if a dealership has some warranties tacked on, then a lending institution says, oh, we'll bump up that loan to value amount that we'll loan out on that car because it has a warranty on it. That means that the customer is going to be protected for longer. So that means they're going to be less likely to default on their loan because they won't, be spending money on maintenance because, again, it's covered under warranty. That's kind of the thought process for lending institutions. So that's how dealerships will make things up. And again, when I was in the car business, that's how things worked, right? You'd lose money on the front end of the car deal to make it back up on the back end of the car deal. However, with how much negative equity people have, this is going to put dealers in a situation where even if they put together a car deal where they're losing money on the front end and they're making money on the back end because they're selling these customers warranties and everything, they're still not going to be making very good profits on average with, again, how much negative equity there is. The profits are going to be pretty razor thin. Again, over the course of the pandemic, you saw dealers in a situation where on the front end of a car deal, they were able to make thousands of dollars, and then on the back end, thousands as well. Whereas now, we're talking about the overall profit on certain car deals being in the hundreds and maybe some of them being in thousands. Again, it's going to depend on a case-by-case basis with the vehicle, with the negative equity, but this is going to absolutely squash dealership profits. So in summary, the negative equity crisis is far worse than I initially realized, and it's because people not only overpaid for the vehicles itself when they bought them at the peak of the pandemic, they also overpaid for accessories on the vehicles, and they overpaid for warranties and other products on the vehicles as well. And that now puts them in a situation today where, since the car market's declined, they are massively upside down. And with all of this negative equity, it's going to force dealers to lower the prices on their vehicles to get customers bought. And it's going to reduce dealer profits overall because, again, when you have tens of thousands of dollars in negative equity, there's just not a lot of profit that a dealership can make off of a car deal because, again, loan to value limits. There's only so much that a car dealership can pack into a car deal to where it just won't make sense for a lending institution. And so it'll be interesting to see how this kind of evolves as time goes on, but just expect to start to see more and more discounts on new vehicles and expect to see dealer profits continue to decline because at this point, dealers are selling fewer cars and they're making less money on each car sale. And so, just do the math. That's all.